So we are back with a brand new movie on what if Naruto was ninja in the galaxy far far away, and NarutoxPadme movie. But before we start, be sure to subscribe to our channel and like this video. Now let's begin the story. The fifth Hokage was not happy. Why, might you ask? Because she had just learned that one of her shinobi, someone she considered as a son or little brother, had just disappeared without a trace. You're telling me that we have absolutely no idea what has happened to him? She asked Kakashi. Well, that's partially true, said a voice from the doorway. Ah, Ibiki, did you get any information out of the Uchiha? Tsunade asked. Well, said Ibiki, I have some good news and bad news. The good news is that we were able to get some small bits and pieces of info. Not to mention, with this little stunt he just pulled, not even the council can save him from execution, or at least life imprisonment. The bad news is that even with the info we got, we still can't say exactly what happened. It's like he just vanished, as if he were swallowed up by the sheer power. I'm sorry to say that Naruto is likely to be dead. Not necessarily, came Jiraiya's voice from the window. Care to share your opinion, you old pervert? Asked Tsunade. It's not so much my opinion as just an idea on what happened, said Jiraiya. Both my apprentice and the traitorous Uchiha were fighting at incredible levels. If their attacks were that powerful and met dead on, then in theory, they could have literally torn a hole in the complicated yet delicate fabric of space-time. With all due respect, Master Jiraiya, spoke Kakashi, doesn't that idea seem a little far-fetched? Once again, not necessarily. GD Temple. Did you all feel that? Asked Master Mace Windu, who was the first to find his words after the virtual explosion of energy that was felt in the force. Felt it, we all did, Master Windu. But felt what I do not know, came the reply from Master Yoda, GD Grandmaster. Whatever, it was more powerful than anything I've ever felt aside from you, Master Yoda, said Master Coyote Mundi. Anger and hate I felt, but also peace and kindness. Know what to do, I do not. But clear it is that something is coming. And be ready for it we must. Was the last Master Yoda said before leaving to go meditate. Captain Panaka had seen a good many things in his life, but a strange boy suddenly appearing inside of a glowing sphere in the middle of the palace courtyard was something new to him. Amazingly, the sphere itself must have been extremely hot because it managed to melt the solid stone ground beneath it. However, the heat seemed to be self-contained because nothing else was affected by the heat. As he stared at the one solid now melted ground, he suddenly remembered the boy. As he came over to examine the boy, he took notice of some things about him. Besides having hair of a brilliant shade of blonde, he also appeared to be well built for one so young. Note. I am making all of the genin, as well as Padme, around 15 or 16 years old. I don't think that in peacetime, the village would need 12 and 13-year-old children as ninja. The boy also seemed to show no indication he was just surrounded by a ball of light so hot it could melt solid rock on contact. And that's when he noticed the blood. Damn, he thought, what happened to this kid? Doesn't matter right now, I've got to get him to the medical wing. What he failed to notice was the faint red glow from the wound, which was already beginning to heal. Get in here, said a dark, horrible voice. Am I dead? Asked Naruto. Far from it, now come here, shouted the strange voice. Naruto suddenly felt a tugging sensation and found himself in a strangely familiar room with water all over the floor and a massive cage that took up an entire wall on one end. For such a giant cage, Naruto noticed, it seemed to be held shut only by a flimsy-looking piece of paper. A piece of paper that on closer inspection contained the kanji for the word seal on it. Oh crap, said Naruto as he looked into the cage only to see the horrible red eyes and damn near evil smirk of the very one who had made his life a living hell. His greatest source of pain and of power in one singular being. The Kyuubi no Kitsune, the nine-tailed fox itself. It was then that Naruto felt it. A low rumbling sound coming from inside the cage. After careful observation, he finally realized what was happening. The fox was chuckling. And that chuckle soon turned into full-blown laughter. And when something that big and evil, that just happened to ruin your life, laughs at you, it tends to get on your nerves really fast. Wahahaha, laughed Kyuubi, I must admit the look on your face was priceless. And that's when Naruto opened his big mouth, which in itself seems much bigger than the fox's, and that's saying something. Don't you dare laugh at me, you giant idiot of a furball. Just shut up and leave me alone. In retrospect, not a good thing to say to the very prideful king of demons. If you can't understand why, what happened next will definitely clear things up for you. Naruto was suddenly blown into the back wall by a blast of Kyuubi's breath that was being let loose. How dare you talk to me in such a manner, you insolent little hairless ape. I would tear you to shreds if you were not the only thing keeping me alive. However, I do need you for the aforementioned task. Right now just shut up and pay attention, I need to talk to you. Okay, geez, just tell me what you need to tell me, and if it's important enough I'll listen. Insolent whelp. Okay, here's what I know of the situation. Elsewhere. Do you understand your orders, Viceroy? Came the soft yet eerily powerful sounding voice of the cloaked figure. Of course, my lord. Everything is in place for commencement. We will have our full droid army finished in 1 month's time to invade Naboo. Came the confident yet frightened sounding voice of Trade Federation Viceroy Newt Gunray. Excellent. You have done well, Viceroy. In 1 month we will begin the invasion and Naboo will fall. Do not fail me when the time comes to deliver, though, Gunray. You will find that I am not a patient man. At that, the cloaked figure boarded his ship and left for who knows where. What have I gotten myself into, thought Gunray before he too left the now empty room. GD Temple. As Master Yoda sat on his stool in the dark room meditating, he once again felt a strange surge of energy that rippled through the force. At the same time, he was bombarded with images ranging from a boy with remarkably blonde hair to a strange what looked to be a village with 4 faces carved into a mountain to the quiet planet of Naboo. And that's when they appeared. Horrible gleaming red eyes and great smirking jaws. The beast opened its mouth to swallow him up and all was dark. Master Yoda, are you alright? The aged GD opened his eyes to see the face of Qui-Gon Jinn and his apprentice, Obi-Wan Kenobi. Fine, I am, Master Qui-Gon. But strange happenings there have been in the Force as of late. So powerful was this tremor, made me lose consciousness, it did. I'm sorry, Master, but how could something be this strong and only you, the strongest of the GD, are feeling it? Said Qui-Gon, who in all truth was very worried. Felt this, all of the council have. Felt it not, have you? Interesting. Speak not of this to anyone, Qui-Gon. For you, Obi-Wan, also be silent. Leave you must. Believe a mission to complete, you have. But that pair of Master and Padawan left. Something troubling you, Obi-Wan? It's just about what Master Yoda said, Master. Whatever it is, I'm sure the council will figure it out. Put your mind at ease, my apprentice. Alright, Master, but I have a bad feeling about this. GD Council Chamber. Saw in my vision, the planet Naboo, I did. Something to do with this disturbance, Naboo does. Said Yoda to the other council members. Do you think we should go to Naboo then, Master Yoda? Voiced Mace Windu, asking the question that a few others were also thinking. If we find this power, we could stop it before it gets out of hand. Go to the planet, we will not. In my vision, a boy there also was. Believe he was the cause of the disturbance, I do. When the time comes, revealed his identity will be to us. But until then, speak not about the disturbance to anyone, even the other GD. Already talked to Qui-Gon, I have, felt the disturbance, anyone but us, have not. Master Yoda is right about not telling anyone. Said Master Mundi. If the Senate were to learn of this, they may begin to believe that we are no longer as strong as we were and are. That could bring trouble for us in the future. Agreed it is then. Until know we do, of what exactly we face, silent about this we must be. Note. From here on, I will not post who said what in the mindscape. There is only 2 beings talking in there and Kai-Ubi's speech and thoughts are in bold. Naruto's mindscape. So basically, you're telling me that the combined force of my Rasengan and Sasuke's Chidori tore a hole in the barrier between dimensions. Go on. And there is no possible way to get home. Keep going. And now we're stuck here in a strange, vastly technologically advanced world that may be incredibly hostile to us and I have no Raymond, ding ding, we have a winner. I expect you'll explode any second now. 3, 2, 1. Well, this sucks, Kai-Ubi sweat drops. Anyway, you'll need to get info fast, so put your shadow clones to work. Shadow clones, how would they help? Shadow clones give any information or experience they gather while alive back to you when they disperse. However, you can't gain physical changes like muscle. The downside is you also gain their exhaustion when they disperse, and if you disperse too many at a time, it can cause mental backlash from your brain trying to assimilate all the info at once. Wow, precisely, now it appears you have company, so I believe you should wake up. And how do I do that? Suddenly, Naruto felt another tugging sensation and the mindscape suddenly disappeared into nothingness. Palace of Theed. Medical wing. Naruto woke up in a very strange place, though even he could tell that it was something akin to a hospital. As his ears stopped ringing, he began to hear the conversation going on around him. "The appears to be stable, sir, but there was something strange." Came a strangely metallic sounding voice. How so? This time another voice, this one clearly male. It would seem that the wounds, while very extensive, were already healing at an inhuman rate when you brought him in. Thank you, Kai-Ubi. Thought Naruto. This little bit of info had Captain Panaka wondering just who or what he had found in the young man that appeared suddenly from nowhere. He didn't have much time to ponder this because at that moment the medical equipment started beeping. Turning around, the people in the room turned around and to their shock and amazement, the boy was standing up and stretching, as though he had just woken up from a light catnap. At this time, Naruto took a moment to take in the people around him. First, there was a strange metal man. Then a tall dark-skinned man. He looked as though he were some kind of officer to Naruto, 10 points to him for figuring that out. Next was an older man who appeared to be of some important status. He seemed to have an odd aura about him though, and Naruto felt cold just being around him. The next was a girl, no older than himself, but giving off an air of authority and power. Although her face was completely covered in white makeup with a single red dot on each cheek and her hair looked odd to say the least, she did appear to be quite beautiful. "What?" asked Naruto, "Haven't you ever seen a guy stretch out before?" At this question, everyone stood, staring at him, unable to find words. It was in the end that Captain Panaka asked, "Who are you and how did you arrive here? For that matter, how did you arrive here in the way that you did?" It was Queen Amidala who was the next to speak. "I am Queen Amidala of the Naboo," she said in that voice that only she and her body doubles can. "The tall man standing next to me is Captain Panaka, head of the Royal Naboo Security Forces. The other man next to me is Senator Palpatine. I ask that you please answer our questions." Time skip. "So you're telling us that you are a ninja from some village in a place called the Elemental Nations. You're basically hired for any jobs ranging from pulling weeds to assassinations, and you got here through a wormhole created by two powerful attacks clashing with each other?" asked the almost irritated Panaka. "Yep, that about sums it up," replied Naruto. "Your Highness, this is ridiculous. The boy is obviously lying." "Guess who? We shall see, Captain. If what you say is true, then would you mind giving a demonstration of your abilities?" asked Amidala. "Yes, I too would like to see what the boy is capable of, if he is telling the truth of course," said the one Naruto remembered being called Palpatine. "Sure, I guess," said Naruto. Outside in the courtyard, as if Naruto didn't already cause enough damage there, Amidala, Panaka, Palpatine, and another aging man introduced as Governor Bibble all waited for Naruto to begin his demonstration for the group. However, nobody expected for him to walk up a wall like it was the floor. "Showtime," thought Naruto as he suddenly jumped from the wall, flipped through the air and landed on the wall on the other side of the courtyard. He then cut the chakra to his feet and fell to the ground below. But to the amazement of the spectators, when he hit the ground, he burst into smoke and poofed out of existence. "Enjoying the show?" said a voice from behind the group, making them jump. Turning around, they saw the blonde ninja, grinning like a fox, with his hands behind his head. "Most impressive. I've never seen anything even remotely like this," voiced Amidala. "Oh," said Naruto, "you haven't seen anything yet." Forming his fingers into a cross shape, Naruto shouted out Shadow Clone Jutsu, and suddenly the whole area was filled with Naruto clones. After touching a few, Panaka realized they weren't illusions or holograms. "They're real," he exclaimed. "As real as that pillar over there, speaking of which, I hope it's not important," Naruto said. "No, why?" asked Panaka. Without saying a word, Naruto walked over to the pillar. Only then did they realize that one of the clones was doing something with the real Naruto's hand. Suddenly a blue sphere of energy that seemed to be spinning formed in his hand. As he reached the pillar, Naruto let out a cry of Rasengan and shoved the sphere into it. If the group was shocked that the sphere was eating away at the stone structure, they were really shocked when it exploded into a million little pieces. Naruto turned around, once again wearing the patented foxy grin, to stare at the faces of the group. Even Panaka's jaw was dropped so low it looked as though it would touch the floor, although he quickly collected himself and put on an indifferent face. "And that's not even quite all I can do. I can also change my appearance with the transformation jutsu and switch places with other object that can take attacks instead of me. By the way, I never actually gave you my name. I'm Naruto. Naruto Uzumaki." Time skip. Naruto had been on Naboo for roughly a week and was thoroughly enjoying his time there. Although technically he was working, as he had been made Amidala's personal bodyguard and also an advisor to the queen. But Naruto couldn't help but feel that there was much more to come. Valley of the End. "Are you sure about this, Jiraiya?" asked Tsunade. "Not in the slightest," said the Toad Sage as he powered up his Rasengan on one end while Kakashi powered up his Rikiri on the other. Tsunade, Shizune, the Sand siblings, the Konoha 12-Asuke, Sakura, and of course Naruto, and also the senseis were all present. They hoped that maybe if they combined their attacks in the same spot the tier was formed, they may be able to get through to Naruto to get him back. As if some unspoken signal was sent, the two opposing forces jumped at each other. There was a bright flash of light and nothing happened. "Well, it looks like this was a complete waste of time," stated Kakashi between pants. Where's Gaara?" asked Kankuro. Sure enough, the young sand user had disappeared. Naboo? 3 weeks later. It was just not Naruto's day. Things were looking bad ever since the Trade Federation had set up a blockade over Naboo. From what Naruto had learned is that the Trade Federation was a group with two things on their mind: money and power. And their droid army was apparently what they used to collect both. Currently, the group consisting of Queen Amidala, her handmaidens, Captain Panaka, two strange people that called themselves GD, a Gungan, and Naruto himself, were currently boarding a ship to escape the planet. Hopefully they could manage to make it to the galactic capital planet of Coruscant. After finally getting into hyperspace, Naruto took time to observe the ones called Qui-Gon Jinn and his student, Obi-Wan Kenobi. Your Highness, Tatooine is not the safest place. It is controlled by a group of gangsters known as the Hutts. If they find us, we may as well have never left Naboo. Argued Panaka. Your Highness, there is no other place to go. We have no other options. Excuse me, interjected Naruto, but I agree with the GD. I've heard of them. They are great fighters and even if they couldn't protect us, I could. Or have you already forgotten my little demo when we met? I've grown nearly twice as strong as I was then. And it was true. Combined with the use of shadow clones, Naruto was also training in his mindscape with a fox. Kyuubi decided to teach Naruto because, as he put it, he refused to have a weak vessel. I'm sorry, but do I know you? Asked Qui-Gon. Naruto Uzumaki. Personal guard and advisor to the queen. Said Panaka. How exactly can this boy protect the queen? Asked Qui-Gon. Hopefully, Master GD you won't need to find out said Amidala. I'm Skip Tatooine. Wait. Came the familiar and annoying shout of Panaka. The queen asks that you take Naruto and her handmaiden Padme with you. Qui-Gon was about to protest when Naruto said, you have no need to worry. I can easily take care of myself or anyone else for that matter. Sighing, Qui-Gon signaled for the two to follow along. Entering a junk shop, Qui-Gon went to speak with the owner out back and Jar Jar, the Gungan, proceeded in getting himself in a mess. Hit the nose. Said the young boy working in the shop. After shutting down the droid that he had accidentally switched on, they all listened to the boy talking. Looking at Padme, the boy asked, are you an angel? I've heard some of the deep space pilots talk about them. They're the most beautiful beings in the universe. You're a strange little boy. Stated Padme. My name's Anakin. Anakin Skywalker. Coruscant. Two cloaked figures walked along, discussing their plans. I will go to Tatooine then, my master. Said one, for anyone who can't tell, this would be Darth Maul speaking. Be careful of the boy, Naruto, my apprentice. He is most powerful. Said the other. But you said yourself that he was not trained in the ways of the Force, and that could be a powerful advantage. Said Maul. Yes, but other than him there are two GD with Amidala. They could pose problems as well. Replied his master. Before Maul left, he got in one last thought. Soon the GD will be destroyed, and we, the Sith, shall have our revenge. Tatooine Skywalker home. Everyone was enjoying the meal prepared by Anakin's mother Shmai. Anakin decided to voice his question to Qui-Gon. Are you a GD? To which he replied with his own question of, what would make you think that? I saw your laser sword. Only GD carry that kind of weapon. Perhaps I killed a GD and took it from him. I don't think so, nobody can kill a GD. At this remark Qui-Gon just sighed saying, I wish that were so. Just then, to everyone's surprise, Naruto stood up and threw a kunai through the window. The group saw him seem tense, then seemed to relax and sit back down. What was all that about? Asked Qui-Gon. Naruto casually took a sip of his water and replied, there was someone watching us. The conversation then turned to some sport called pod racing. They decided that in order to win money for the parts that they needed for the ship, Anakin would race in the pod race for the prize money. The next day, Qui-Gon went to talk to the junk shop owner to make the proper arrangement so Anakin could race, while said boy was outside working on his homemade pod. Naruto decided to take in his surroundings, but it was hard given that he could still feel someone watching them. Outside the house, he saw Anakin working while Jar Jar got his hand stuck, poor Jar Jar. Padme managed to free him and although he couldn't hear, he could tell that the droids found the Gungan exceptionally odd. The first tall droid was of Anakin's own creation. Not quite finished, but still workable, he called himself C-3PO. The next droid was a stumpy little rover called R2-D2. Naruto liked this one as he had saved the entire ship on their escape from the Trade Federation. Naruto cleaned him up and thanked the little droid personally. Anakin fired up the ship, which seemed to be in prime working condition. The boy has a lot of chakra for his age. Not nearly as much as you had, but still quite a bit. Came the voice of Kyuubi inside his head. I know perhaps with you teaching me, I could teach him. It would be nice to have a true apprentice, even though Padme has been wanting to learn my techniques, I don't think it would be possible with her having her queen duties. Thought back Naruto. However, if what I think will happen happens with Qui-Gon's little bet he plans to make, I'm guessing they plan to make him one of those GD. Yes, but that all depends on if he is freed. If he is free, but unable to see his mother because of a GD's life, it may turn out badly. How do you know so much about the GD? Perhaps I'll tell you sometime. And with that the fox went back to sleep. Time skipped next day. So, the ship for the boy, eh? asked Watto the junk dealer. The boy and his mother replied Qui-Gon. No ship is worth 2 slaves. Stated Watto. Then how about a new one? Came a voice from the shadows. The two looked to see Naruto walk out. What do you mean a new one? Asked Watto. Yes, said Qui-Gon, I would like to know myself. At this, Naruto performed his newest jutsu. With a shout of blood clone jutsu, a second Naruto appeared next to the first. He is me in every way, shape or form. He is capable of everything I am and will follow your orders without question. He also has the basic lifespan of a real human, so it won't wear out like droids do. Said Naruto. Watto was practically drooling at this. Deal, the ship and the clone for the boy and his mother. Said Watto. The three shook on it and then it was time for the race to begin. As all but Anakin went up to viewing platform, Padme said, do you think it wise to trust our fate in the hands of a boy that has never won a race? The queen will she never got to finish as Qui-Gon cut her off. The queen trust my judgment young handmaiden. So should you. Once Qui-Gon was out of earshot, Padme whispered, you assume too much. Hearing chuckling behind her, she turned around to see Naruto laughing. Oh be quiet. She said and followed the group. As you wish, said Naruto, your highness. Then he too followed the rest of the spectators hoping for a miracle. Note. I'm skipping the race details because it's too troublesome to write. In Konoha, the whole Nara clan sneezed at the same time. To which they all said TSK, troublesome. The next day, the group had everything they needed and prepared to leave. Me and Master Qui-Gon have something to do, it won't take long, said Naruto. They arrived at the Skywalker home and told the mother and son about winning their freedom. Just as Naruto thought, Qui-Gon planned to have Anakin become a Jedi. His mother however surprised everyone with the announcement that she would be staying. So, leaving C-3PO with his mother, Anakin packed his things, which turned out to be easy thanks to some sealing scrolls Naruto had, thank you Kyuubi. Qui-Gon and Naruto were running to the ship, Naruto carrying Anakin on his back. Qui-Gon turned suddenly and shouted for them to get down. Dropping Anakin to the ground just in time, Naruto turned to see a robed figure with black and red skin, spikes on his head, and horrible teeth. But what really got Naruto's attention was the lightsaber this warrior was sporting. Qui-Gon and Naruto then proceeded to engage this threatening new warrior. However, Qui-Gon was soon knocked unconscious and Naruto was tiring quickly, having to avoid the hot laser sword that could go through him smoother than the Chidori. Maul gained the upper hand and prepared to strike Naruto down. Damn, this is it. All that training for this? Asked Naruto as he prepared himself for the final blow. He noticed something strange though. It wasn't coming. Cracking open his eyes, he saw that Maul was being held back by sand. Well, I won't ask how you got here, but I sure am glad you are Gara. Sure enough, a figure rose from the sand. Gara looks just like he does during Sasuke retrieval mission, so I won't describe it to you. Nice to see you too Naruto Uzumaki. For the record, next time, try to feel who it is rather than just whipping a kunai at them. If it wasn't for my sand, it would have lodged into my forehead. Naruto rubbed the back of his head sheepishly while apologizing repeatedly. It was then that Qui-Gon came back to the world of consciousness. Who are these people? He thought. First Naruto's clone, now this kid captures a force-trained warrior by controlling the sand. Shall I kill him or does anyone need him for something? Asked Gara getting raised eyebrows from all present. Everyone came off the ship to see Gara, so all present means everyone. Leave him alive. Said Qui-Gon. The GD Council will need to interrogate him. As you wish. Said Gara, who turned and walked to the entrance of the ship. Suddenly, more sand shot up from the ground and fully covered Maul in a cocoon of sand. Picture Gara's sand coffin. The sand that proceeded to follow Gara onto the ship. So Gara, what are you doing here anyway? Asked Naruto to the sand user. Well, after you disappeared, Master Jiraiya came up with a theory that the clash between the super-powered Rasengan and Chidori managed to rip a hole between our universe and this one. Lady Tsunade was willing to try anything to get you back, but we couldn't generate enough power to form another rip. So, instead, we went back to the valley where the first rip was made and Master Jiraiya and Kakashi used their Rasengan and Rikiri techniques to reopen the rift. There was a bright light and the next thing I knew I woke up in the middle of a desert, replied Gara in his usual tone. Luckily, he continued, I was able to spy on the locals of that town we were in and was able to get some very useful information. I have a question. Everyone turned to see Qui-Gon standing in the doorway. Just who exactly are you? I've never seen anything like what you can do. Fortunately or unfortunately, the two ninja didn't get to answer him. We're about to exit hyperspace. Came the pilot's voice over the intercom system. Frowning slightly, Qui-Gon said, I still want some answers. As he left, Naruto and Gara looked at each other. As they made eye contact, the two felt a tug in their minds and everything went black. Mindscape. The two suddenly woke up floating in pure nothingness. No floor, no walls, nothing at all. Well, 3 would be the more appropriate number. Besides Naruto and Gaara, there was a beautiful girl with blonde hair and green eyes with him. Her most outstanding features, however, were dark rings around her eyes and a tail. "Where are we and who is she?" asked Gaara. The girl obviously heard him because she looked at them and smiled. "My name is Suna, but you know me better as Shukaku." At this announcement, both boys' jaws dropped. Of course, this could also be from the fact that she was totally naked. As she realized this, sand seemed to come from nowhere and form what appeared to be battle armor. After regaining his composure, Gaara said, "Well, that answers one question, but creates 100 more. Alright Fox, how do you get these two into my mindscape and why are we all here?" shouted Naruto. Suddenly, everything warped and from nowhere a beautiful Zen garden appeared. The three saw a man sitting on a rather large rock drinking tea. He had fiery red hair, fox ears, and 9 tails. He was wearing what looked like samurai-style armor and carried a very ornate sword. On his wrists was a pair of manacles with a kanji for seal on them. "Wow," said Naruto, "when I gave you free rein to change your accommodations, I didn't expect anything like this. That is because you assume that because I am a demon fox lord, I cannot act in a civilized manner. You never will be able to see the world beyond the world whelp if you cannot even see behind a stereotype," replied Kyuubi with an almost bored tone. "Now, to answer your question, I simply linked both of our minds with Shukaku's vessel to pull them in here. I thought it may be time to explain some things. If you'll follow me, I can begin the explanation." With that, Kyuubi stood up and an ordinary-looking door appeared in front of him. Walking through, the group found themselves in an endless white hallway of doors. If you haven't figured it out yet, let me just say that this is the closest one of my Naruto stories will ever get to crossing over with the Matrix. "Now, where is that door?" asked Kyuubi to himself as they walked through the long door-lined passageway. Heading close to Naruto, Gaara whispered, "Do you have any idea where we are going?" Turning to look at the sand user, Naruto sheepishly rubbed the back of his head and said, "Not a clue." "Ah, here we are," said Kyuubi, making the group stop and look at the door that looked exactly like every other door in the hallway. Opening it, the group had to shield their eyes from the pure white light that radiated from the room. Walking in, they noticed that all there was in the room was the white light. They were just floating in the sea of white light. "Welcome, brat, to the core. This is your mindscape's manifestation of the subconscious, where the most pure thoughts come from," said Kyuubi. As if to make his point, the group heard voices, whispering questions, and they could see flashes of images, possibly memories, float through in bubbles that seemed to appear from nowhere. "Well, this is cool and all, but how does this explain anything?" asked Naruto. Smirking, Kyuubi seemed to become consumed by the light surrounding them and disappeared. Suddenly, a wave of energy hit the group and a glowing red bubble appeared. It expanded and burst, changing the entire room to black. However, this change didn't last long, as a white ball of light appeared underneath them, and from that light, multiple beams of light shot from the single orb, and those lights branched off into even more streams of light almost endlessly. It was at this point that Kyuubi reappeared and began. "What you are witnessing is the axis of worlds. Every single area of light is the specific time-space continuum of that particular world. The orb of light represents the home of the gods. All dimensions are separated into areas, and each area is controlled by 2 governing gods. In the case of the dimensions we are from, those gods are Kami, the goddess of life, and Shinigami, the god of death. The 2 rule over all happenings in their area, however, the 2 answer to the one true god, who governs all of creation and time. He is constantly watching everything, and were it not for him, no life, from mortals to the governing gods, would not exist." Back to the matter at hand, however. They are all pulled to a section where 9 of the dimensions seem to be distinctly close to each other in a ring-like formation. "This is our dimensional area. That," he points to one of the dimensions, "is your world. And that points to another is the world we are currently residing in. Notice anything about them?" Looking at the light streams that represented the dimensions, Naruto saw that the 2 were overlapping. Not greatly, but still, it made Naruto feel like something was amiss. "When you made the rip, you crossed through into this world, the oldest of the 9 worlds in our area I might add. As such, the barrier of your world was torn and such things cannot simply heal, even with help from the governing gods. So, this world we are in now was positioned to work almost like a plug. However, it seems that with it, the worlds are fusing together and will soon be one dimension. Now, this has only happened once before and I can tell you, the weaker world most likely will not survive the fusion and will be consumed by the stronger. Your world being the one with the tear is the weaker one and anyone still living in that world will most likely be destroyed, aside from the other containers of the tailed beasts, that is." "I have a question," said Naruto, "why do you keep referring to it as my world?" "That, whelp, is because the tailed beasts each rule over a separate world. Yours, being the youngest of the 9 worlds, is controlled by my sister who you see standing before you. I rule over the oldest, which is the one we are currently in, and so on for the others. Now when I say rule, I don't mean that in the sense that we control everything. The tailed beasts were created by the governing gods to watch over the worlds as balance keepers. If a civilization becomes too corrupt, that world's tailed beast comes to wipe it out so they can begin anew. That all changed however when the humans in your world found out how to seal. My sister called upon us for help and so we did come. One by one, we were sealed away until we were all trapped by you worthless humans, no offense. At one point or another, we each received messages from Kami and Shinigami to begin transferring our power to you. The containers will become the new tailed beasts. This is because without us, there would be nothing to balance the forces and all the dimensions in our area would erupt in chaos and destroy themselves and each other. As he said this, the group saw the lights representing their area expand and intertwine with each other. Then they just disappeared and all was still. Snapping his fingers, the door appeared and the group walked back into the endless hallway. So that's how you know so much about this universe. You've been watching it from the shadows all this time, said Naruto. More than just watching, I've done my share of influencing as well. When the gods left this world, they left some of their power, which some mortals managed to use. They call it the Force. They look at it as separate, a light and a dark side. The light is remnants of Kami's power, while the dark side is the power left from the Death God. Some Force users even claim to be able to see the future. This is because of the true God endlessly watching all. As he enters and exits this world, some of his power remains as well, which also serves to bind both sides into simply the Force. At first, the GT were unaware of the dark side, they didn't quite know what it was they felt, so I gave a few a push in the right direction. And thus, the Sith were born. The problem is, the GT think that to bring balance to the Force, the Sith must be destroyed. This is not the case, for if the GT are in power, which must be destroyed to balance out the world. One question from me, said Gaara. Why isn't she completely insane? Points to Suna. My guess is that the journey through dimensions altered your seal, which destroyed the Berserker seal on my sister. On the plus side, you should be able to sleep peacefully now. And speaking of sleep, I think I'm going to get some, now goodbye. With that, they were pushed back out of Naruto's mind. Really short compared to last chapter, but hey, I needed a little explanation. I hope you like it and remember, everything I write about will have meaning later on in the story. As for the name for Shikaku, Suna was all I could come up with that sounded good to me. I just put sand into an English to Japanese program and took Suna from the result. Review please, but when doing so, please refer to the beginning of the chapter. I would like it if all reviews were more than 1 or 2 words and explain why you liked it or didn't like it. The first and foremost is that in this story, should I simply cover the movies or should I go into the Clone Wars? I would like a message from you all on this, so get typing. I put all of this in an author's note in my story Uzumaki X, but sadly, nobody has answered my question. Secondly, and this is not actually the question, but read it and you'll get to it. Now, a lot of story crossovers have Naruto stumble into some ancient room or across something from the time before ninja and gets better with whatever he found. Now I tell you this because I am thinking of starting another story and the ideas I present you with, well some of them are going to run this scenario. Some will not, but I am giving you the chance to vote on what story gets done. I will probably write about them all, but you get to decide which comes first. Also, while the elemental nations are technically in Japan, he may find things from all other parts of the world, to him ancient world. Now, starting with the 2 that do not involve finding the object we have. Naruto Teen Titans Cross-Aim basic storyline is my other Lost in Other Dimension stories. Naruto will become the Fox Thief. If you don't know what I'm talking about, check out Uzumaki X, though as the situation is different, the Fox will be different than the Fox Thief in Uzumaki X. We'll have Naruto paired with Raven, though he will have maybe one other girl. Naruto Batman the animated series Cross-Aim basic storyline is my other Lost in Other Dimension stories. Naruto will become the Fox Thief. Pairings undecided. If you have ideas on this, please message me. But the finding a major power-up category, note that almost all will be found during the wave arc. Naruto Spider-Man Cross Naruto walks along the beach and finds what looks to be an almost disintegrated skeleton with 4 mechanical arms. Naruto will get Doc Ock's arms and it's gonna be the movie-verse Alfred Molina version of Doc Ock. Naruto Spider-Man Cross Naruto is headed through the woods to the battle on the bridge and the ground collapses underneath him. Landing in a strange lab, he reactivates the machines and finds himself gassed with some green gas. Along with his new abilities, new tech and new psychotic split personality, the new Green Goblin will take the ninja world by storm. In this fic, Naruto has the gadgets of the movieverse Goblin, but his split personality will be something of a cross between movieverse Green Goblin and the new one from Spectacular Spider-Man, and if you don't know that one, watch an episode and find out why I chose it. Both the above fics will be NarutoxPadme pairing. Naruto crossover, don't know what to technically call this one. Basically, Naruto finds and takes a strange elixir he finds in an old laboratory. An elixir created by one Dr. Henry Jekyll. Naruto's other half will be more along the lines of the Hyde from the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen ability-wise, but will just be more original in personality. Naruto Mummy Cross, not really much thought on this one yet, but basically, Naruto finds the Book of the Dead and ends up with the spirit of Imhotep trapped inside of him. No thoughts on pairing, but I would just love to do this one later on, so I put it on the poll. Those are the choices, go ahead and vote. Now on with the story. Disclaimer. I do not own Star Wars or Naruto. If I did, do you think I would be writing my crap on the internet? You all know how the speech works, so I'll just skip that part. Just like that, Naruto and Gaara were pushed back into the world of reality. They looked at each other for a moment, contemplating what they should do next, deciding it would probably be a good thing to strap in if they were coming out of hyperspace. Unbeknownst to the two of them, that 1 second lapse in concentration caused a sand coffin to loosen just enough so that Maul could grab his lightsaber, which had also been trapped in the sand. He smirked, now it was just a waiting game. As they went down to the planet, Naruto could feel excitement filling him. From what the pilot had told him, Coruscant was practically one big city the size of a planet. Sounded much more exciting than that desert wasteland of Tatooine. As they descended to a landing platform, Naruto got a cold feeling down his spine. The same one that he got the first day in this galaxy when he met that old man, Palpatine, if he remembered correctly. Sure enough, as the group made their way onto the platform, Naruto could see Palpatine standing next to another man that Naruto guessed was this Chancellor Vlorumsp. After a brief conversation with the two older men and an argument between Panaka and Naruto, it was decided that Naruto go with Gaara and the GD to answer the questions that they were entitled to. So, entering the transport, the two GD, the Sith, Anakin, and the two ninja, made their way to the GD temple. Walking through the temple, they came to a stop at a door which the GD entered. After a few minutes, Gaara and Naruto were asked to enter. Walking in, they saw the strangest mix of species they had seen since arriving. MMMMM. The two turned around to look at a tiny green figure sitting in one of the many seats, watching them intently. Looking at Naruto, the green figure looked even more serious than the dark-skinned man sitting next to him. This one, the boy from my vision, he is. Something to do with a disturbance in the force, they both do. Ask you some questions, we would like to. But first, answers we must get from this dark one, he said, pointing to Maul at the last bit. At this point, Maul started chuckling. Running through the halls of the temple, the GD, with young Skywalker straining to keep up, were rushing to get to the hangar. Qui-Gon, take the boy with you and your apprentice, you will, said Yoda. To the queen you must go, protect her you must. Believe this dark warrior will attempt to kill her, I do not. But careful, we must be all the same. Always two there are, a master and an apprentice. Know which one this warrior was, I do not. But believe he will seek out the other, I do. Yes master, replied Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan simultaneously. With Maul. After escaping from the GD, Maul had decided to take to the street level and lose his stalker on foot. He knew he was being followed, he just couldn't tell where his stalker was. Running through the alleys, he was suddenly blocked by a wall of sand. Using the force, he jumped well over the sand wall, but as he landed, a giant arm shot from the wall and grabbed him. Reigniting his lightsaber, he slashed at the sand, severing the arm from the wall, causing it to loosen enough for him to use the force to escape. Suddenly, all the sand converged and formed the red-haired boy who had originally captured him, standing there with his arms crossed over his chest. You may as well come with me peacefully, as you won't be able to defeat me, said Gaara. Lunging at Gaara, Maul swung his lightsaber at the boy who had literally become a threat to him. However, something interesting happened as the sand shield formed around the boy, literally scaring Gaara. The lightsaber swung right through it. This greatly turned the tables, as Maul could tell, because while he still had a great offense, the boy's defense was nothing against the Sith Lord's weapon. Igniting the second blade on his saber, he started swinging in a more controlled fashion, causing Gaara to use his agility to dodge and avoid. Of course, Gaara didn't have much speed and agility as he had never needed them. Using the force to knock him back, Maul went in for the final strike, but he wasn't prepared for what happened next. Someone or something jumped on his back. Jumping and throwing the cloaked figure, which appeared humanoid, he stabbed him through with his saber. However, he was once again surprised when the figure continued to fight him, even with a hole in his stomach, which oddly enough wasn't bleeding. In fact, there was nothing inside the figure at all. Throwing the cloak off, the figure was revealed as what appeared to be a three-eyed, four-armed man with messy black hair. However, the thing seemed to be made of wood. Suddenly, Maul was blown back by a huge blast of gale force wind, which seemed to be alive as it cut and slashed at him, as though he were caught in a torrent of blades. It all ended as he smacked into the wall of a building and fell to the ground. Landing in a crouched position, Maul observed two figures appear next to the Gaara. One was a girl with blonde hair tied in 4 ponytails, carrying what seemed to be a giant fan. She seemed older than Gaara by a few years. The other was a boy who also appeared older than Gaara. He wore what appeared to be a cat costume and purple makeup on his face. Maul noted that he seemed to control the wooden figure with his hands, much like a puppet. Gaara was shocked to say the least. How did they get here? Not that I'm not glad to see them, but even if they tried to reopen the rift again, they would need much more power to get through. The only reason I went through, same as Uzumaki, is that I'm a Jinchuriki. Well, Tamari, it looks like someone was picking on our little brother, said the one in the strange outfit. We'll just have to teach him some manners then, won't we, Kankuro? Replied the girl, a smirk present on her face. Maul knew that these two would be a very big problem for him, so, in a very un-Sith-like fashion, he turned tail and ran, willing the Force to give his legs the strength to outrun the two newcomers and reach his master. He knew the punishment of failure, however, at least his master wouldn't kill him. He wasn't as sure the 3 teens would show him the same mercy. We have to go after him, said Gaara, but after only a single step, the sand controller fell to his knees, exhausted from using muscles he never thought he would need. But there was something else as well. A pain that emanated from the location of his seal. A pain that was slowly spreading. It was then that he remembered the Kyuubi's words inside Naruto's mindscape. One by one, we were sealed away until we were all trapped by you worthless humans, no offense. At one point or another, we each received messages from Kami and Shinigami to begin transferring our power to you. The containers will become the new tailed beasts. This is because without us, there would be nothing to balance the forces and all the dimensions in our area would erupt in chaos and destroy themselves and each other. As he remembered those words, the pain suddenly increased 1,000-fold, causing him to cry out in agony. Both Tamari and Kankuro watched as sand swirled around their brother and he let out a scream of pain, as well as being engulfed in a white light. The light was so intense they could not bear to look at it. When everything had subsided, they turned and were shocked by what they saw. Their brother now sported what looked to be the tail of a raccoon, and his ears were replaced with raccoon ears as well. To complete the motif, the rings around his eyes grew bigger and darker, giving him the appearance of wearing a mask. However, what shocked them the most was the beautiful blonde girl that was supporting their brother on her shoulders. They looked at the girl, decked out in ornate battle armor, and couldn't for the life of them figure out who she was or where she had come from. Walking up to them, the girl bowed as best she could while supporting Gaara's weight and said, "You have many questions, and you will get answers, but for now, we need to find the Galactic Senate building. That is where we will find Naruto Uzumaki." Tamari and Kankuro shared a confused look, but Tamari spoke up. "I think I know where it is. I'll take you," she said while putting Gaara's other arm around her shoulder for support. "Which now makes me wonder just how you know where the place is," said Gaara, who was at this point drifting in and out of consciousness. "Or just how exactly did you get here in the first place?" "Tell you later, but for now I'll tell you that we came through not a day after you did. We landed here and scouted the place out as best we could, but the city is too huge, it's like it never ends," replied Kankuro. "By the way, any clue who she is?" Shukaku was Gaara's reply, which almost caused Tamari to drop her brother. Galactic Senate. Naruto rushed in, though rushing wasn't as easy as it sounds, as he also had to sneak by security, as he didn't have clearance. "I'm the queen's personal bodyguard, why the hell don't I have clearance to sit in on the meeting?" thought Naruto. As he came to the Senate chamber, he could hear the voice of the queen boom across the room, "If this body is not capable of action, then I suggest new leadership is needed. I move for a vote of no confidence in Chancellor Velarim," she said, causing an uproar amongst the other senators, many in favor, while others not. Never before had Naruto heard so many voices cry out at once. "Naruto." Turning around, Naruto saw Gaara, along with Suna and the Sand siblings rushing toward him. Granted, Gaara was unconscious so he wasn't doing much running. "Not that I'm not happy to see you guys, and I have a zillion other questions, but one is more prominent than the others," said Naruto. "And what would that be?" asked Suna. "How the hell did you get in here without security getting all over you?" Naruto practically shouted. Giggling, Suna replied, "They tend to let you in when you have an unconscious person. All we did was ask for directions to the medical wing." Naruto, upon hearing this, promptly face-planted. The group was interrupted by the arrival of Qui-Gon Jinn and his apprentice, along with young Anakin Skywalker. "Great," said Naruto, "does everyone have permission to be here but me?" "Apparently," replied Suna. Qui-Gon came over to the group and noticed that some drastic changes had happened to the sand user. The fact that he was unconscious was something of concern as well. "What happened to him?" asked Qui-Gon. "Lack of sleep, probably," replied Naruto. "That's not what I meant," said Qui-Gon, beginning to get irritated with the young blonde. He seemed to gain pleasure in avoiding the GD's questions. "Elsewhere?" Anyone walking through the dark hallways of the facility on the far side of Coruscant would hear the screams of pain coming from the Sith apprentice as his master mercilessly sent force lightning through his body. "Failure is not something I tolerate, Lord Maul," said the Sith master casually, stepping away from the smoking form of his apprentice. "However, I have decided to give you one more chance. I am sending you to Naboo to watch over the invasion. Now go, leave my sight." "Yes, my master," replied Maul, slinking into the shadows. Amidala's Coruscant residence. Naruto walked in on Padme as Amidala, Panaka, and Palpatine discussing something about a nomination, though Naruto really wasn't paying attention to that. He was really worried about himself at this point. He couldn't help but wonder when his own transformation would take place and what would be the consequences. Panaka didn't seem to like him as it was, but if he found out what he was going to become, he could only assume it would get worse. Then there was Padme. What would she think of him? She was really the only one from this world that he could call a friend. She actually valued his opinion and treated him like a person. Would that go away when he sprouted fox ears and 9 tails and became the new Kyuubi? He decided to put it out of his mind for now. He was suddenly snapped out of his thoughts by the announcement from Amidala that she was going back to Naboo. Finally he thought, I could use a little action right about now. "Your Highness, I must protest," said Panaka. "I agree, returning to Naboo at this time would be most unwise," said Palpatine. "Please, Your Highness, I beg of you, stay here where it's safe. I believe the fact that an assassin was sent after me to Tatooine proves I am not safe anywhere," replied Amidala. "Better I die alongside the people of Naboo than while simply discussing its fate in a committee. My fate will be no different than that of my people," she finished, walking out of the room, Naruto right on her heels. "You put this idea in her head, didn't you?" asked Panaka, absolutely fuming at the situation. "No, I believe it was that Gungan Jar Jar. He said something about an army." "I don't know, I wasn't even paying attention," replied Naruto, who put his hands behind his head and walked off. No one noticed the slight smirk on Palpatine's face. Unfortunately, on the group's way out of the building, they were stopped by Qui-Gon, who once again told the group that Naruto would have to answer some of the GD's questions. Naruto was going to protest, but before he could say anything, Padme spoke for him. "Naruto, go answer the GD's questions, and then we will meet at my ship," she said, walking off, Panaka, Jar Jar, and her handmaidens following close behind. They entered a shuttle and left, leaving Naruto alone with Qui-Gon Jinn, who motioned him to follow onto another shuttle, which rocketed off toward the GD temple. "Now then, I believe you all have some interesting information to tell us." Naruto and Gaara both looked up into the face of Master Windu as he spoke. Aside from them, Gaara's siblings were also present, along with Suna. "What is it that you want to know?" asked Naruto. "Everything. We want to know who you are, where you are from, and most importantly, how it is you can do what you can do," replied Windu, leaning forward in his seat. "Who we are and where we are from is acceptable knowledge to relinquish, but how we do our jutsu is something we cannot tell you. We can tell you the basics of how they work, but to tell you these things would be a betrayal of both our villages," said Tamari, causing Yoda to chuckle. "Not necessary, it is, to betray your home. Require we do, only a basic information, to place in the GD archives," said the aged master, closing his eyes. "Strong, you each are, with the force. Flow around you in the most peculiar ways, it does. But share not our secrets with you because of this fact alone, we would. Just as keep your own secrets, you would," said Yoda. The entire group of shinobi plus Suna backed away slightly, leaving Naruto stuck out front. "Any particular reason you're backing away?" he asked. "Well, you're kind of our unofficial leader, so you may as well act as our voice. Not to mention you're naturally better at being able to talk freely with others," said Kankuro. "Fine," said Naruto. "My name is Naruto Uzumaki. I am a former shinobi of the village of Konoha in the Elemental Nations." The GD Council looked confused. "I've never heard of a shinobi or the Elemental Nation," said Windu, eyeing the blonde, a slight suspicion in his eye. "Well, that's where the wrench is thrown into the works. We, meaning me and my friends, are not of this world, not of this universe to be precise," said Naruto, causing the eyes of all the GD in the room, especially Qui-Gon's, to widen in shock. "How is something like that possible?" asked Mundi. "It sounds absolutely ludicrous." "I know," replied Naruto, "but you have to realize that I speak only the truth and only what I know. I had gotten into a battle with a traitor to our village. In our final confrontation, we ripped a hole between our world and this world, which I was pulled through. And now it seems that my friends are coming in after me. The good thing too, given that our entire dimension is going to very soon be consumed by this one and destroyed." At this proclamation, there were several more wide eyes. Only Naruto, Gaara, and their tenants knew of what was to become of their world. "So, there is no way for you to go back then?" asked Windu. "None," replied Naruto, looking solemn. "I can take over from here," said Tamari, stepping forward. Proceed then, Yume replied Yoda. My name is Tamari. I hail from Suna, the village of the sand, along with my two brothers she began, indicating Gaara and Kankuro. Qui-Gon took notice of the fact they were from the sand village and their brother ended up appearing on Tatooine. After Naruto came through the tier, the leader of the Hidden Leaf village Konoha attempted to reopen the rift after consulting with Master Jiraiya on what had happened. However, our efforts were seen to be in vain, as even in the spot where the barrier was thinnest, being the spot where the original tier was formed, we could only generate enough power to cause Gaara to go through. And why? Why was your brother the one to go through? Asked Qui-Gon, stepping forward. Because I am a Jinchuriki, same as Uzumaki replied Gaara. What is this Jinchuriki? Asked Yoda. In our language, it means power of human sacrifice, replied Gaara. Naruto and I were both used to contain powerful beasts, thought to be demons. We were used as human jail cells, and as such, we had the power to pass through the dimensional rift easier than others. If I could wager a guess, I would assume that this girl, with the same features you both share, is your demon, said Windu, Suna looking down in shame. As I said, they were only thought to be demons. What they truly are is beyond even your comprehension, said Gaara angrily, surprising his siblings for standing up for Suna and for the announcement that she was not in fact a demon. And what is she, that above our understanding she is, asked Yoda, chuckling at the telltale signs of affection Gaara showed for Suna. She is the guardian of our world, said Naruto, once more drawing eyes to him. Guardian of your world? What do you mean? Asked Windu. She, along with the other beasts, keeps the balance of the worlds in check, making certain that neither light nor dark is stronger than the other. Without balance, the worlds fall into chaos and eventually destroy themselves, said Naruto, telling what he knew. And a guardian, possess you do? Asked Yoda. I possess the oldest and most powerful. The nine-tailed fox, it is called. Kyuubi. He is the guardian of this world. He is its balance keeper. Fortunately, his job most likely will not be required much longer, replied Naruto. Why is this? Something else, take his job did it? Asked Yoda. Thousands of years ago, Kyuubi set events in motion. What they are, I cannot say, said Naruto. Cannot or will not? Asked Windu, cutting Naruto off. What they are, I cannot say, continued Naruto, but what I can, you already know. There is a prophecy of one who apparently will bring balance to this world. The chosen one, said Windu. You mean to tell me that this Kyuubi is the one who created it? I guess. Now, there is one question I would like to ask of my friends, replied Naruto, turning to them. How did you get here and where are the others? Kankuro looked a little uneasy, but began. After Gaara was sent through, we knew it was possible. We just couldn't generate the power to get us through. So, Sune did the one thing we thought she would never do. She released the Uchiha from prison and gave him rights to travel anywhere he saw fit on the condition that he help us break open the rift again. He agreed. Naruto's hands began clenching into fists. When his cursed seal Chidori attack collided with Jiraiya's sage-powered Rasengan as he called it, there was a flash of light, a horrible pain, and we woke up in something akin to a hospital, a while later finished Kankuro. What about the others? Asked Naruto. We don't know. We think that they are probably scattered throughout the galaxy, said Tamari. Or lost in the never-ending void of space, frozen and dead, said Naruto, his voice beginning to crack. I don't think so. Naruto looked up to see Qui-Gon looking at him. Masters, if I may speak. He asked, getting a nod from all the council members. Masters, Naruto here landed on Naboo. Gaara on Tatooine and his siblings here on Coruscant. I find it highly unlikely that these four, of all the open space in the galaxy, managed to land on inhabited planets. I believe that perhaps the planet's gravities form anchors that pull them in. If I had to guess, I would think that all of his friends and comrades that came through have landed on planets throughout the galaxy. Now the task only remains to find them, said Qui-Gon, giving a reassuring smile to Naruto. The aging GD had to admit the boy, as annoying as he was extremely likable. Believe you are right, I do, Master Qui-Gon. Your mind at ease, put it Naruto. Find your friends, you will, said Yoda. Go, you may. Believe the queen, waiting for you she is, he said, dismissing them. Before they left, however, Naruto had to know one other thing. Master GD, what fate is to befall the young Anakin Skywalker? Asked Naruto, much to Qui-Gon's curiosity. Decided if he is to be trained or not to be trained, this council has not, replied Yoda. Why wish you to know? If he is not to become a GD, the boy would make a fine shinobi. If he is to be trained or not, let me know. If not, then he may just be trained as a ninja, said Naruto, before exiting the council chambers, his friends, Qui-Gon, and an irate Obi-Wan in tow. Do you think that they were telling the truth? Asked Windu, turning to face Yoda, who was deep in thought. No, if it is true, I do not. But for now, the will of the Force to trust this boy, I believe it is, replied the aged GD master before leaving his seat and hobbling out of the room. The group arrived at the landing platform where the queen and her ship awaited them. Before they entered the ship, Naruto watched Qui-Gon pull Anakin off to the side and have a talk with the boy. Naruto was about to try and hear what he was saying but was suddenly nudged in the leg from behind. Turning around and looking down, Naruto saw the stumpy form of R2-D2 behind him. Well, R2, seems like we're heading back to Naboo. I just hope this Gungan army is big enough to fend off the droids. Otherwise we're toast, said Naruto, placing a hand on the dome top of the little droid. R2 let out a series of beeps and whistles. Oddly enough, Naruto thought as though he could understand him. Yeah, I know. I've been in battle before, but I've never seen a full-scale war before. All I know is that I need to keep the queen safe. And I don't even know if I can do that, replied Naruto. R2 let out another series of whistles and a sound that reminded Naruto of a sigh. I know the GD will be there as well. It's just if something goes wrong I don't want to be responsible for Padme's death, replied the ninja. The stumpy rover just made a raspberry sound and wheeled off into the ship. What is that supposed to mean? Asked Naruto defensively, following R2 into the ship. Wandering around, Naruto began to feel a horrible pain emanating from his seal. No, not now. Thought Naruto, running into his chambers on the ship. He tried to make it to his bed but found that he couldn't get there over the pain he felt. He dropped down to his knees and clutched his stomach in pain. His head felt like it was about to split open as he lifted his shirt and saw his seal glowing a deep red color. His hands began to form into claws as he fought to hold in his pain-filled screams. No, he thought. I will not let this happen now, not here of all places. Gathering as much concentration and focus as he could muster, Naruto tried to hold off the change. He wasn't very successful, as evidenced by a red energy tendril beginning to form behind him, attempting to solidify into a tail. Don't fight it, boy. It will have to happen eventually, you're only making this more painful on yourself, said Kyuubi from with his mind. I don't care, thought back Naruto. I will not change yet. I refuse. With one last burst of strength, Naruto let out a scream and cancelled his transformation. Crawling over to his bed, climbed in, before flopping onto his back. The door slid open as Obi-Wan stepped. Are you alright? I heard screaming. Yeah, I'm fine, but thank you for your concern, replied Naruto, but Obi-Wan could see the flashes of pain still flash across the boy's face. Are you sure? He asked. He had felt some sort of disturbance in the force coming from the boy. It was faint, he doubted that even his master had felt it. But it was still there. Yes, I'm fine, said Naruto. But are you? He asked, getting a quizzical look from Obi-Wan. What do you mean? Asked the GD Padawan. You seem a little on edge around your master. Did something happen between you two? Asked Naruto. Oh, it's nothing. Don't bother yourself trying to help, it's not that big of deal, replied Obi-Wan, looking slightly embarrassed. Not from where I'm sitting. What happened? Asked Naruto. It's just we were speaking with the council about the fate of the boy, Anakin. They were still debating whether or not he would be trained, though they were leaning toward not training him, said Obi-Wan, Naruto waving him to go on. Master Qui-Gon, when he realized this, announced that he would take Anakin as his Padawan learner, and when he was told that he couldn't take a second apprentice, he told them that I was ready for the trials of the GD, ready to be promoted to the rank of GD Knight. And do you think you are? Asked Naruto, already understanding what Obi-Wan was getting at. What does that have to do with anything? Asked Obi-Wan. I just wanted to see if you held yourself in any high regard, whether or not you had faith in yourself, replied Naruto, nonchalantly. However, I believe you do, so I guess it was pointless to ask. Especially when that's not the problem. What do you mean? Asked Obi-Wan. In the last several years you have been Qui-Gon's apprentice, you have formed a bond with your mentor. You are a little angry that he would pass you on so suddenly for a boy that we all just met in my clothes. Asked Naruto, and Obi-Wan looked ashamed of himself. You're jealous of Anakin. But you have no reason to be. Obi-Wan looked up at Naruto. I shouldn't be jealous. I wish I could control these emotions as I do my others, but I can't. Jealousy is not good for a GD. Master Yoda says it clouds your judgment and leads to the dark side, said Obi-Wan. That may be true, but it is a natural part of life. You can try all you like, but these feelings will always haunt you, even when you try to control them. You should have nothing to fear though. I have seen your master in action, and he seems to be a man that cares deeply for everything and everyone. He believes so blindly that Anakin is the chosen one that he will do whatever it takes to get him trained as a GD, said Naruto. He speaks of the living force, that I should be mindful of that, said Obi-Wan. I wish I could see the world like he does, but I can't. I'm sure you will in time. What you have to realize, Obi-Wan, is that Qui-Gon is a man of his word. He wouldn't just toss you aside. If he offered you up for these trials, he believes you really are ready for them, said Naruto. You just need to learn to let go. Sharing a bond is fine, but don't let that bond be the end of you. For being so young, you have quite a knowledge about how the world works, said Obi-Wan, who was beginning to feel a bit better. Trust me, when you live a life like mine, that knowledge comes with a territory, replied Naruto, getting up off his bed before he and Obi-Wan exited the room. Once we land, we will have to rally as many people as we can. Will Captain Panaka and his men find anyone willing to help? Jar Jar Binks will attempt to ask the Gungan people to come to our aid, said Queen Amidala. I'm not so certain they will help, Your Highness. When we met with them before, they seemed to utterly despise the Naboo people. It will be difficult to sway them to your side. Also, while Obi-Wan and I are here, we can only protect you. We cannot fight a war, replied Qui-Gon. Yes, but I believe the shinobi can, said the Queen, standing from her on-ship throne. Damari. If I may, I would ask that if the Gungans are to help us, that you fight alongside of them. I don't believe the droids would stand up to your wind abilities if what Naruto says is accurate, she said, the blonde Sunanin nodding. I would be honored to fight alongside them, Your Highness, said Tamari. And what of the other shinobi? Asked Panaka. Bulgara Sand cannot stand up against a lightsaber. I believe it can hold up against blaster fire. If it can, he would be of great help in infiltrating the palace unscathed, said Amidala, getting a nod from Gaara and Suna. As my guard, it will be Naruto and the GD's job to deal with the largest threats. And finally, Kankuro. Can you change the appearance of your puppet? Asked Amidala. I can make Karasu into almost anything you want, he replied, casting a jutsu, shifting his puppet's appearance into that of himself. Amidala just smiled slightly. Here's the plan. The group stood there, waiting for Jar Jar to return from Oto Gunga. Naruto noted that Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan seemed to be back on friendly terms. And he was fine with that. He was glad his pep talk had worked so well for Obi-Wan. Jar Jar suddenly emerged from the swamp. Oto Gunga, he said. It's empty. All da Gungans, Desa gone. Desa not Thursa. Do you think they were captured? Asked Qui-Gon. Oh no, no. When Gungan's in trouble, Desa go to da Gungan sacred place, replied Jar Jar. Can you take us there? Asked Obi-Wan, to which Jar Jar nodded. With that, the group was off. The end. Thanks for watching, also remember to subscribe and like this video. See you in the next video.